Welcome to What's Next, Previews, Predictions, and Prognostications. I'm your host, Rhett Power. Joining me is my co-host, John Baldoni. How are you, John?
I'm doing just great.
Well, this is a show about and that examines what we do now and where we go and prepare for what's next. Whether you own a company or work for one, you need information on what we can expect in the wake of COVID-19. We interview thought leaders and doers from the worlds of business, science, medicine, economics, media, and psychology who will help us shape the new normal. So let's get started. John?
Great. We have a wonderful guest today, Rhett, and it is Harry Kraemer Jr., who is the former CEO of Baxter International. It's a multi-billion-dollar global health company, and ran it very successfully. But since, quote, retirement, which was not a retirement, Harry was recruited by his former dean at Northwestern Kellogg School, which happens to be my wife's alma mater, to come back and be a professor. So he is a practice professor, and he has been voted Professor of the Year in 2008 and was a finalist in 2014. And anyone who could be nominated as a teacher or professor of the year means they're connecting. Both Rhett and I know Harry from our group, Marshall Goldsmith 100. Harry is a very committed leader, educator, teacher, and philanthropist. And we'll talk about all those things. But today, Harry, you serve in executive capacity for Madison Dearborn Partners, which is private equity. So what are you hearing from executives, lead people now in our time of pandemic?
Yeah, great, John. Great to be with you and Rhett. I would say more than anything, John, and I'm sure you're seeing this, clearly there's a lot of change going on, tremendous amount of change. And that's something that leaders always deal with. I think what's very, very difficult is this combination of change and uncertainty. And the fact that we really don't know what's going on. We don't know how long it's going to last. We don't really know whether there will be go back to normal or a new normal. That combination of change and uncertainty, if you're not careful and you're not being a value-based leader, as you know, can basically lead to chaos. And I think that the requirement to step up for leadership and figure out a way to improve communication is something that people are really struggling with in a big way, as you know, John.
Yes.
What are the students? You've been talking to students, I'm sure, between now and since the end of classes. What were some of the things that students were concerned about? What were the questions, and what were the concerns about going out into the job market now, and what changes they were going to see as they enter the job market?
Yeah, Rhett, it's literally all over the map. Okay, a long list. Some of the ones are you've got people, second-year students that receive jobs, and we're celebrating that now we're finding that the jobs are either being taken away or significantly delayed. Hey, Rhett, we offered you the job starting in July. Guess what? We're going to have to postpone that until January. So wait a minute, I got all this debt, and now I've got to wait another 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. You've got people in the first year that we're counting on an internship that now they don't want to have them because they're struggling keeping the people that they have. Right. The international student thing, Rhett, and I know you're in Brazil, is remarkably complex because a lot of these folks now are being told they have to leave the country. And now when we're talking about how do we come back to start in the fall with all of this issues of being able to get visas, can they impact? And that obviously has an enormous impact on the school, which is, hey, will we open on time? Will it be on Zoom? Will it be face-to-face? If it's face-to-face, what do we do with the international students who can't get there? Because now you can't even do Zoom because if it's 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. So the level of complexity, given that combination of change and uncertainty, is impacting everybody.
Wow.
In our time of uncertainty, and this is, it's a triple effect right now. Of course, we've got the pandemic, which is the virus, and we have an economic upswing, and we have another virus which has always been with us, and that's racism. So our world is turned upside down. And I think a lot of executives are feeling much uncertainty. What advice are you giving them, CEO to CEO?
Yeah. And so, John, this one, and I love you asking, and I know you're a great believer in this as well. What this comes down to for me, and we could get global and then talk specific, this is what I think it comes down to, of figuring out, no kidding around, am I going to try to be a value-based leader? And if I'm really going to be value-based, as you well know, John, the very first thing I have to do is I have to step back. Rhett and I were talking about this before. I need to think about this difference between activity and productivity and take a little bit of time to self-reflect. Turn off the noise, get off by myself, turn off all these crazy devices, and ask myself a series of questions, right? What are my values? What's my purpose? What really matters? And again, a lot of people, and I know you know these people, John and Brett, oh, Harry, sounds great, sounds super, but the problem is I don't have the time. And I'm always asking, is it we don't have the time, or is this something we don't want to do? Because this could get very, very sensitive. And I always say, wait a minute, when we say we don't have the time, we all commute someplace, all right? Some of us actually pray or meditate. Some people exercise. You can do this when you're taking a walk. But taking a little bit of time, John, and asking yourself and putting yourself in perspective, because as you guys know, you can't possibly lead other people until you can lead yourself. And how can you lead yourself if you haven't figured out what really matters? So I'm very, very focused on getting CEOs and chief level officers to actually think these things through.
You've got a new book out, Your 168. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And you talk a lot about reevaluating priorities. How do you do that? I mean, because we were talking about earlier, if you look at my schedule, my family's schedule, we're going a million miles an hour. Before COVID hit, we've got practice here, we've got this practice, we've got a school event, I've got a work travel. And is there a way to reevaluate? Is there a way to sort of sit down? Is there a system or a process that you use to kind of reevaluate those priorities and get that right?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to John one time, Rhett, when I was in college, because I've been doing this now for 40 years. I take 15 minutes at the end of every day and do a personal self-examination, okay? And literally the process is 15 minutes. I'm not a morning guy, 5 kids, a lot of boards, a lot of running around like you guys. And for me, it's usually midnight, and I take 15 minutes. And my personal self-examination, Rhett, goes like this. What did I say I was going to do today? What did I actually do? What am I proud of? What am I not proud of? How did I lead people? How did I follow people? If I lived today over again, Rhett, what would I have done differently? And then the last one, if I have tomorrow, being fully well aware that sooner or later I won't, but if I do have tomorrow and I'm a learning person, based on what I learned today, how will I operate differently tomorrow? On whatever dimension of your life has any significance, right? As a leader, as a follower, as a father, as a parent, as a sibling, whatever matters to you. And taking a little bit of time for that, Rhett, I realize helps me separate out activity and productivity. It helps me prioritize. It helps me realize what the three of us know for sure, Rhett, is that at the end of the day, there's no scenario we're going to get everything done, right? So it comes down to, am I getting the things done that are the most important things? And how can you possibly do that if you haven't taken the time to figure out what matters?
Right.
I remember I've read, and it's in your brand new book, that exercise, and also I've heard you speak about it, Harry, and it reminded me of something, and I've seen it in a movie so it's a fictionalized case, but it was about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in the scene, it's a fictionalized scene, but it's it's John Kennedy's aide de camp, who was Kenny O'Donnell, who was talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he said something to the effect, he said, Kennedy was mulling in his mind, am I going to make the right decision? And Kenny O'Donnell said something which I think I want your reaction to. He said, Mr. President, none of us know that, but I know that you will make the best decision you can possibly make right now. And I've heard you say that. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, John, perfect. If you think about it, and this is the beauty of what you guys are trying to do, of just helping people and being open, what are the things that we all deal with, all right? Worry, fear, anxiety, pressure, and let's not forget about stress, okay? Now, what do you know about worry, fear, anxiety, pressure, and stress? They're not healthy, waste of time, can really confuse you, and by the way, as a healthcare guy, it'll kill you, okay? But the problem is, if you wait until you're in the middle of the problem, it's too late. And as you and I, John, have talked about, if you're self-reflective and you really think through, it isn't a question of if there's going to be some problem, it's only a question of when. So as a result of my personal self-examination, what I ended up deciding, guys, a long time ago was no matter what happens, and this is really the key, no matter what happens tomorrow, I know already what I will do. I'll try to do the right thing. I'll do the best I can do. I'll try to do the right thing. I'll do the best I can do. And it is literally something that I pray about and think about, John, every day, to the point where, here's how open I am with you guys. Today is, of course, with this thing going on, it's always a little tough to remember. I think it's Wednesday, okay? Now, I don't know, and I don't think you guys know, what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to happen Thursday? Now, this sounds a little morbid, but for me, my worst case, I think, guys, tomorrow would be something happens to Julie, God forbid, or something happens to one of the 5 children. Now, I hope it doesn't happen, John. I'll pray it doesn't happen. I'll do what I can to prevent it. But you know what? If it happens, I already know what I will do. I'll try to do the right thing. I'll do the best I can do. And that is so firm on me. When I went through crises at Baxter, things now, what it ends up doing is it helps me reduce worry, fear, anxiety, pressure, and stress. By definition, can't eliminate it. We're welcome to the human world. And by the way, Rhett, we've all had bosses that would say, hey, Rhett, a little bit of pressure on you is not all bad. The problem is we got a lot more than a little bit, right? And I think once you put things into perspective, all the people you're trying to help, John and Rhett, when they're all worried about all these things, hey, guys, this is why they call it work, okay? This is why we're here. So we're not going to be complacent. Put it in perspective. And maybe one other one, John, you'll appreciate. My grandfather, who lived with us growing up, I may have mentioned this to you. I would come home and complain. When I was first starting to work, hey, Grandpa, you're not going to believe what these people did today. And he'd say to me, Harry, that's why they call it work. And by the way, Harry, let me give you some advice. Tomorrow, when you come to work, if there are no problems and there are no issues, Harry, you may not have a job, right? And I thought, yeah. So now I fast forward, John, 15 years later, I end up becoming the CEO of Baxter. You're one of my executive vice presidents. You walk into my office, Harry, we got some real problems. Well, John, that's actually good for you, right? How could that be good? Well, John, you're still employed, okay? Let's just put it in perspective, all right? Or people would say, Harry, you got 55,000 people, you're in 103 countries. Harry, what keeps you awake at night? And I would literally say, by the time I go to sleep, nothing keeps me awake, all right? And if I don't go to sleep, John, in 5 minutes, I'll read another Winston Churchill book for a while, okay? That's the way I think about it. And I know you do too, guys. I know you do.
That's brilliant. And I remember you telling that story about your grandfather when we were in San Diego a couple of months ago, and I thought that was great. He must have been somebody that really gave you all kinds of wisdom and things to think about.
He was an amazing guy. He was a history professor, and he always quote whoever it was, whoever it was, of hey, whoever doesn't study history, whatever, is damned to repeat it. And he would always say, I got a lot of my self-reflection things from him, because he'll say, Harry, if people, you can always tell whether somebody's self-reflective, right? Because the people that are not self-reflective, they're surprised, and you're surprised, they're surprised, right? So everybody's surprised, Rhett, but you ask yourself why. Right now. Let's think about this a minute. We got this crisis, and I know what we're going to do. We're going to isolate ourselves, and that way it's going to bend the curve, okay? Well, now we've decided, we're kind of sick of this. Let's go back out again. Oh, people are getting it again. Oh, you're surprised? I mean, it's not like the virus. I mean, think about this, right? It's not like the virus said, you guys are tired of this? Oh, I'll go away, right? And somebody the other day said to me, because I'm on a hospital board, they said, is it going to be a second wave? Second wave? We're still in the first wave. Nothing has happened, okay? And it's like everybody's walking around surprised. Why would you possibly walk around without a mask right now? Okay, I'm not going to make political comments, Rhett, but there's a lot of people that are surprised out there, pal. I don't know why they're surprised.
What I like about your work, Harry, in your first book and your new one, Your 168, is your focus on the micro, in a way. And when Rhett and I were talking about this, and I say this respectfully, this 168 is real. Your 168, which refers to the hours in a week, it's an old-fashioned book, and in the sense that it's so old-fashioned, it's new-fashioned, because it's so much common sense, we ignore it. And I always like what you just said, the common sense thing of reflection, and bring it down to that level. The question you just talked about on purpose, knowing your purpose. And so take that for a minute. How do you communicate that to your direct reports, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, so I'm one of these guys, John, who I always say no answers, opinions. I just believe that very simple model, John. Leadership has everything to do with the ability to influence people. The only way I know how to influence people is you have to be able to relate to people. That's my entire model. That's how simple it is. So if I can figure out a way to relate to Rhett, maybe I can influence them, and then maybe I could lead them. And the only way I know how to relate to people is to be yourself, to be authentic, to be open, to be vulnerable. Hey, John, thanks for asking the question. I don't know, but you know what, John? You're really a great guy. You got great values. How fast do you need an answer? I'll find out an answer. I'll get back to you. I won't let you down. And I think when you're vulnerable and you're open and you let people know, the way you operate and why you do what you do. So when people say to me, a student will say to me, well, Harry, how do I think about my purpose? And I'll literally say, well, what really matters to you? And when they ask me, I'll say, well, I'll give you an opinion because it's just me. But, I figured out a long time ago, what do I know to be very simple, common sense for me? 1, I'm human. 2, I'm going to be here for a blink of an eye. And maybe I'm supposed to leave the world a little bit better than I got here. And if I happen to be blessed to be married, if I happen to have children, and I can pass that on, and in my mind, the most valuable blessing of being a leader at Baxter was not power, it wasn't money, it was, wow, I have the ability to influence 55,000 people in a very, very major way. And that's why I teach now, because I think to myself, my calling now, John, very simple. I would love the world we're living in now. I think we could use a few more value-based leaders, okay? And if I can have a small influence on that, John, on the next generation of people that are leading organizations, small, large, public, private, for-profit, not-for-profit, domestic, global, wow, what a way to go out. What a way, we always hear, is it success or is it significance, right? Is it your resume or is it your legacy of what maybe somebody will say at your funeral? I was telling students the other night, John, people said to me, well, when did you graduate from Kellogg? I say, well, it's a few years ago. No, it was 40 years ago. Guys, I went from being 24 to 64 like that. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't feel that much different than when I was 24. Okay, no, I'm 64.
Not
and
up
if
here.
I blink of an eye, if I tell Julie, John, if I snap my fingers again, if I'm still around, I'd be 104. Julie says, oh, don't talk about that. Don't talk about it. No, I'm a math major. It's 64 plus 40. So let's deal with it. And it's not depressing, okay? It's just you got a limited amount of time. And how are you going to spend your time? And what are you going to focus on and what are you not going to focus on? And I think by people knowing that, then as you know, John, they can relate to you, you can influence, and you can lead.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to something we started to talk about, and it was about surprises. And you talk about that in the book, about hitting that brick wall. What do you mean by that? And because I think I get it, but I'd love for you to talk about it because I think it's a really important topic.
Yeah, so John, Rhett, I appreciate it because like you guys, and I love what you guys try to do, you try to take all this complexity and let's make it simple because none of this stuff is that complicated. So bear with me, this is kind of a crazy analogy, but here's the thought. You're in the United States, you're in Chicago, and you want to go to New York. I think if you get on Route 80, I think it's direct, okay? Now, if you think about your life, and if you think about the balance you want to have in your life, if you're able to balance all the things we do with our children and everything else, and our work, our faith, our everything else, you could say, well, I'm on Route 80, and I'm on Route 80 all the way. Now, real world, let's be in the real world. We got to travel to Japan this week. We have a big project. We're never going to, nobody can stay on it. Here's the key issue. If you like that analogy, we get off at an exit ramp, okay? I get off an exit ramp, we got to get gas, we got to get a burger, a little milkshake, whatever. Somebody's got to go to the bathroom. Okay, but if we're self-reflective, okay, we'll use John. When John gets off at an exit, he knows he's off the exit. He knows why he's off the exit. It's temporarily, and then he gets back on. So if I think about that route, then I start to think to myself, it's almost a little bit of a sine wave. And I want to keep that sine wave pretty tight, okay, to that. Now, what happens, John, when all of a sudden I get off and I literally forget about my family? I get focused on materialism. I get focused on, I got to become a president, all right? Now, in this analogy, when I go off that exit ramp, remember, I'm going from Chicago to New York, Rhett, all of a sudden the next sign I see says, entering Atlanta, okay? Now, I don't know the last time you looked at a map, okay? But you, my friend, are about like 800 miles off course, all right? Or in my language, what you've done in a business sense is, we know these people, you gained 50 pounds. You started drinking, okay? You're having an affair. Your kids don't know who you are. You have literally hit the wall. And because you weren't self-reflective and it wasn't an exception, you weren't calculating what you were doing, you weren't looking at your 168, okay, you've literally hit the wall, okay? And as we all know, we won't mention names, some people hit the wall and that's it. And the show's over. okay? But other people, they've realized it. Maybe they're blessed. Maybe they got a good friend like one of you guys who said, hey, we need to spend a weekend together. We need to talk through. We need to get you to AA. Something's got to happen here. And then can you recover? So my whole focus is nobody's perfect. That's why we're on this earth. We're all here for a short period of time. Do you know you're off so that you minimize the surprise? And if you get that far off, you got a real problem. And that's what I'm trying to prevent. There's a lot of people now, some of my good friends that are focusing on, and they're great people. How do you help people that have hit the wall? What do you do in those situations, right? I'm back here somewhere of, hey, folks, what do we do to prevent that from happening at all? Okay, right. And that's sort of where I am, and I'm trying to start off with younger people because I think if you can start off when they're younger and they make them aware of the trade-offs that they're making. Does that make sense?
It's easy to get off that road, to go down that road. Very easy.
Very, very easy. Very easy. And what I try to do, Rhett, is I try to challenge the students. They'll say to me, hey, Professor Kraemer, no, Harry, well, I'm really trying to decide, to work for consulting firm A or consulting firm B. And I'll say, okay, we can talk about that. But before we talk about that, why do you want to be a consultant? Could be a good career, but have you thought about that? Right. Well, I just got married last year. We have a 3-month-old. I said, now, let's just make sure you understand this. If you do that, I just want to make sure you'll be living in New York. You'll be traveling 95% of the time. And when I run into you at an airport, please don't be surprised. Now, if you say to yourself, here's how open I am, guys. If you say to yourself, you know what, my career is the most important thing. Becoming a partner is the most important thing. If I don't have a relationship, now, we may not want to think that way, but the beauty for that person, they're not surprised. My whole goal is to minimize surprise.
Right. That's a perfect entree because you had a student who came to you who was thinking about a career and you knew what his passion was, and it led to something quite extraordinary in which you are intimately involved and in your philanthropy. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Oh, John, you're great. So this, John, is probably the thing that gets me most excited. I've calmed down a lot from, the way I used to be, but I get a little excited about some things. This is clearly one of them. I mentioned, John, as you know, in my first class, and Rhett, just so you're aware of this too, we talk about all the issues in the world, global poverty, global healthcare. Who's going to deal with this? And we always say, well, the people who are going to deal with it is this famous group of people called those guys, somebody else. No, we are those guys. I mean, we're so blessed. You're coming out of Cal. If you're not one of those guys, one of the men or women, who are? And this fellow that John's making reference to, Andrew Youn, Y-O-U-N, he literally took a trip to Kenya, came back and said, you know what? I'm one of those guys. What does that mean? Well, I'm not taking that job in New York. I'm moving to Kenya. And literally the day after he graduated, he moved to Kenya and he started something called the 1 Acre Fund, O-N-E, acrefund.org, okay? And the great story of this one is, this was now, I think it was 12 years ago. Here's the fast forward. I believe he's hired 17,000 Africans. He started in Kenya, Rwanda now, Uganda, Tanzania. He started in Ethiopia. They have doubled or tripled the annual crop yield on over 1 million farms that has so far saved the lives of 4 million children. And you can look at oneacrefund.org. People ought to really take a look at the TED Talk he did. It's Andrew Youn, Y-O-U-N. And this fellow, when you talk to him, talk about genuine humility. His view is, for first-generation American, his parents are from South Korea. He said, Harry, we just scratched the surface. Harry, we're like 2%. I'm not coming back. We're like 2% of the way there. And so what I told him when the first book came out, From Values to Action, I realized, wait a minute, the book's called From Values to Action. I called him, Andrew, you're the best living example of From Value to Action. So when I'm not teaching, I'm not running around on 10 boards, I will do these talks, and people like you guys can help spread the word. And I will do this once a month. And I've done it now twice a week for almost 8 years. So I've done over 1,000 of these talks, John. And all the proceeds go to this 1 Acre Fund. And by the way, I tease people, as you guys know, in order to get an honorary a PhD, doctorate degree from a place like Northwestern, I tease, usually you have to have invented a planet or something, okay? And you're 85 years old. So at the graduation last year, this fellow, who I believe he's 38 years old, got an honorary doctor's degree. And then at the graduation of Kellogg, which, I know you may attend when your wife was there, John, usually got some luminary, he gave the commencement talk, okay? It's an amazing story because we talk about, all right, we're here for a blink of an eye. Are you watching the movie or are you in the movie? Okay, are you talking about those guys or are you one of those? And that in my mind is a tremendous example of leadership in a big way. So all the proceeds from all these books and all these talks, it all goes to this One Acre Fund. Which, in fact, Dean Jacobs, who you may have met, John, at one point, he told me before he passed away. He said, "How's everything going?" I said, "Don," I said, "I've been doing this now for 12 years. I said, I'll do this till I'm at least 80, God willing." I said, "It's like the trifecta." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well," I said, I love spreading leadership values. It's great for Kellogg, and we raise a fortune for this One Acre Fund." He goes, "No, it's not a trifecta. It's a fourfecta." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because you love doing this." And I said, "I do love doing it. I do love doing it."
Oh, that's great.
There you go. Yeah. And that's why we're here, is to do something we love, I think.
Well, Ed, we want to give you an opportunity. I ask you to bring a copy of your 180. So would you pick out a passage and read from it, please?
Sure.
Something that resonates with you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I always said it's always good. It's always good to be vulnerable, because that just shows how you can relate to people. So, what I thought I would mention, as we've talked about already, is this whole idea that if you're moving really fast, you don't even know what you're doing, and are you aware of it? And so when I talked about that, I said here, page 103, there are times when we take a step back and see just how out of balance we are. Thankfully, nothing bad or permanently damaging results. We just have to laugh at ourselves. So I travel a lot, several times a month for several days at a time. To keep myself organized, when I park my car at the airport, I always write the location of the parking space on my ticket, which I tuck away in my wallet. It's a routine that I follow every time. One night after flying home from Los Angeles, I couldn't find the parking ticket anywhere. I started to worry, but I remembered distinctly parking my car on the 3rd floor. I walked that entire floor of the parking lot at O'Hare Airport, row after row, hundreds of parked cars. I couldn't find mine anywhere. I was in trouble because I was supposed to meet Julie for a late dinner in downtown Chicago, and I knew I was going to be late because I couldn't find my car. When I finally gave up looking and called Julie from my cell phone and she said calmly, "Harry, I have your car. When you left for LA the other day, you took a cab to the airport. No wonder I couldn't find the parking ticket." Okay? All right. Yeah. So, we get moving so fast, okay? We're running in place. Do we even know what we're doing? And I really do believe, even when that's why I like that analogy of the road. Yeah, I can talk about being on Highway 80. I'm definitely getting off at exit ramps. But do you know you're off, and are you committed to getting back on?
What gives you hope about where we are today in society? We've got a lot going on between politics and the pandemic and social and racial injustice issues. And what gives you hope, and what also scares you? What maybe we start with what scares you, and then or what really bothers you, and then what gives you a lot of hope?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Boy, you guys ask great questions. Very self-reflective questions. That's very good.
We read your book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I love the way you asked it, Rhett, because for me, that second principle is all about balance. Right after self-reflection comes balance, and this is a real balanced one. I would say what worries, social media has.
Oh no.
Where rather than people in general taking the time to
Hey, we have a little bit of lag, so I think we missed a lot of your answer there.
So, your screen froze there.
Okay, no problem. Are we okay? I can start that again.
We're okay? Good now. We've got you back.
Okay. Rhett, as soon as you think
No, we lost.
Yeah, we lost him again.
Just just wave. Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you for all of that. So if we've got you back now, I think.
Sorry.
Okay, he's going to come out and come back in. Maybe that'll help us out. Well, John, this has been a really fascinating conversation. I think there he is. He's back. We have you back, Harry.
Yeah. You know, Rhett, I started to answer the question, Rhett, and you had your eyes closed, and I thought, wow, I put him to sleep. I actually put him to sleep.
My eyes were open, Harry.
Yeah.
I was taking it all in.
You were self-reflecting, Rhett. You were self-reflecting. I get it. All right. So should I start with the answer of my opinion on your question, or do you want to ask the question? I know the question. Is that the best place to start? As if you just asked me the question? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. You know, Rhett, I really appreciate the question because it really does fit in with this whole issue of really finding a balance. Because one of the things when you say what worries me is I think this whole social media has created a problem for many people that instead of being able to understand multiple perspectives, you know, they basically get the echo chamber of exactly what they like to hear. And I'm a big fan of the St. Francis comment of, I seek to understand before I'm understood. I say that every day, Rhett. If I'm having a discussion with you, I will try to never say, hey, Rhett, I don't understand where you're coming from, because I actually believe that's ignorant, okay? If I take the time, I can understand. Then I'll decide in a respectful way, do I agree or disagree, right? Yeah. So I think the problem right now is everything is so polarized, okay? And this is not just the United States. I think it's the whole world. We're in an extreme, right? And people just hear what they want to hear. And as you guys know, the answer to most things is somewhere in the middle. Okay, I mean, we don't need to get involved in a lot of political stuff, but you name the issue, okay? You know, you got, you know, you name it, gun control. Well, either there should be no guns of any kind whatsoever, or everybody ought to have a gun, and even though if you're mentally handicapped, that's okay with whatever. Well, maybe there's an in-between, right? You know, immigration. Well, there should be no immigrants, and we got 12 million people in the United States who shouldn't be here, or, hey, you know, everybody ought to come in. All right. Well, maybe, but if all you understand is your perspective, and I do believe with social media and a lack of a willingness of people to take the time to understand, that's the biggest thing I'm concerned about. Okay. Now, what am I hopeful for? Well, I'm actually hopeful in the younger generations now, because unlike what happened to a lot of us, and I'm generalizing. But I think a lot of my friends, when we went to school, guys, it wasn't we were bad people. It was, hey, we ought to help people, but I got to get a car, I got to get a house, I got to get kind of established. And once I'm all established, well, then I got a calling. Well, my 5 kids, and most of the young people I see, they basically say, I'm not so sure I need a house, okay? That doesn't sound like a great investment. And I certainly don't need a car. I can Uber anywhere. And by the way, I'm much more focused on experiences than just collecting stuff. I don't think all this stuff did my parents a lot of good. And the way I would characterize this, Rhett, where I get very optimistic, I would say in my class at Kellogg, good people, but I would say if more than 2 or 3% while we were in school were involved in nonprofits, working for Habitat for Humanity, soup kitchens, if more than 5%, 90% of the students in graduate school now are involved in at least one nonprofit because they really care, all right? And they care about the environment, okay? I grab a plastic bottle at a store, and 2 of my sons say, hey, put that back. You get a glass of water when we get back to the house. What do we need a plastic bottle for? I mean, these people really care. So I really do believe they want to really make a difference. And as long as we can make sure that they don't get too caught up in this echo chamber, that they really do understand multiple perspectives, I think we're going to be fine.
And I think that's one of the reasons we had you on one of many reasons we had you on the show, Harry, is because you walk the talk. When people see someone of your caliber, achievements, whatever, external, but you're dedicating your life to educating the next generation. You lead by example. Cliche, of course, but it's so impressive. And when you do that, you give people, quote, permission to do that. So we appreciate what you've done. So I like that example.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and thank you for your time today. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I could go on for hours and hours, but I won't be respectful of your time today. I know you've got things on your agenda today, but thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Well, it's great. It's great to be with you guys. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. More than happy to do it again sometime. And if folks are interested in some of the questions and the things, they can just literally go to the website that in fact, it was kind of funny, Red. A couple of years ago, the students actually set up a website, which was just harrykraemer.org. And I said, I'm over 60. I don't need a website. And they said, no, that way when people want to get you to do talks, they can find it. And a lot of my guys at Madison Dearborn said, what did this cost you? And I said, I didn't come to these students, just did this. Well, you should really pay these folks. So I said to the students, I said, hey, what do I owe you? And they said, no, you don't owe us. And I said, no, what do I owe you? And the one fellow said, no, you do us. You need to start doing a blog post. And I said, what's a blog post? And I said, not a problem. We'll take care of it. All you do is you send us an email on an aspect of leadership, values, and so on, and we'll take care of the rest. And you guys, I know, are much better at this than I am. But now it's always fun because when I'm in an airport, I'll run into former students and they'll say, hey, I saw on Instagram or something. I said, I'm not on these things. Oh, no, you're on everything. Okay. So I don't know what these guys are doing, but other than writing a few emails, John, that's what I do. So it's great spending time with you guys, and it'd be fun to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Where can we get the book? Where can people get the book?
Well, you can get it through Amazon very, very easily. And if you're buying them for the companies and you want to buy a lot of them for One Acre Fund, there's a distributor in Milwaukee, John, you may know them. I think it's called Porchlight. They give the best discount because most of the books I do for companies, they go through there. But Amazon or Porchlight, they do a phenomenal job. So all very good. And thank you guys so much. Really great being with you guys.
Great. Well, Harry, thank you for being our guest. And this has been another episode of What's Next, Previews, Predictions, and Prognostications. We have more great episodes coming. Thank you, Harry. We appreciate it. Till next time, thanks everybody for watching.